Hi and welcome to another tutorial for Excel users. In the previous tutorial I showed you how to create date calculations by simply minusing one date off the other, and what I want to do first of all in this video is show you how to avoid some annoying problems that might crop up when you do that. And I had a question from somebody on the previous video which I answered in the comments about what happens when your calculation shows up as a negative value. Is there some way of hiding that, or putting up some other message maybe? And yes, there is, and the solution is to combine the date calculation with an if function, so that you can choose what message to put in if the calculation result goes negative, as it has in this case. So if you look at my original dates, my first one was Wednesday, May the 11th, and went through to Friday, 10th June, which are all now past dates. And you can see my days to go is all full of negative values. So it doesn't really make any sense when you see it. I mean, you should just say something else like, show finished or date passed or whatever, or maybe just blank. There's a couple of ways you can solve this problem. One of them is cheap and cheerful, which is to use the conditional format. And I'll very quickly show you that. You've probably seen this before in one of my other tutorials. So if I select those values there from H7 down to H11, just go to the format menu, choose conditional format. And what I want to have happen, obviously, if the value goes negative, is just to basically be hidden. So I'll say if the cell value is, in the first box, leave that as it is, and simply say is less than, and then just type in 0 in the result box there. So if it's less than 0, I'm going to apply a format, and I'm going to apply a font color, which is right here, and the font color is going to be white. Simple as that. So OK that, click OK on the conditional format dialog, and now as I've got them highlighted, you can actually see the white text there on the highlighted parts, but if I click away, all those negative values disappear. And that's one way of doing it. Not a very good way, but it's one way. So I'm going to undo all that, bring them back again. And a better way is to apply an if function and combine that with the calculation. So I'm going to delete, they're already highlighted, so I'll delete the values out there. And we'll start again. So this time I'm going to do an if function, so it's equals to begin, type if, open bracket. Now obviously this function, it has three parts, as you know. We have a test, then something we want to have to go in if it's true, and something if it's false. Now in this case the false part will basically be our date calculation as normal. The test will be to find out if the result of that is negative, and the true part, if it is negative, will be either a blank cell or a message. So I'm going to put a message in this case, but you can have a blank cell if you want to, and I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing we need to do is test if the result is going to be negative. So the calculation is very simply as it was before. So we click on the show date, press minus, and click on the current date, which is right there. I'm going to set that again as an absolute reference, so I'm going to copy the formula down, so I don't want that to change from E3 to E4, etc. Okay, so is that result less than 0, which would make it negative? Type a comma, and if it is negative, I'm going to have the word, just the word past in. There we go. I suppose you could type in PAST, same thing. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'll leave it as past, and comma again, and then the false part is simply going to be the same calculation, but this time it would, if it's not a negative result, presumably it's either 0 or a positive result. So I will repeat the calculation. So again, we click on A7 in this case, minus E3, and again set that as an absolute reference. So it looks complicated, but hopefully it makes sense that basically all we're doing is just checking initially if the calculation is going to be result in a negative value. If it does, we're going to put a word in there that says past, I mean the date's gone, and if not, we'll simply put the calculation in as we would have done anyway, as we initially did. So there's the formula. I'm going to check it in the formula bar there. So equals if, open bracket, logical test, result if true, result if false, and click on that tick, and we should, because it's a negative result, get the word past in there, which we do, thankfully. Now I will just repeat that one more time and show you what you need to do to put a blank cell in. It's pretty straightforward, really. It's mostly the same. So equals if open brackets, and just repeat the calculation there. Less than 0, comma. Now this time my true part is going to be just simply a double quotation, and that will put a blank in the cell, or basically put nothing in the cell. And obviously the result of the formula, if it's not true, is going to be the same calculation. And make that an absolute reference as well. So there we go. So that's the same calculation, but this time it puts a blank result in rather than anything, to say a negative value or a word in, say. So there we go. And I can just highlight those two to show there's nothing hidden behind, which there wouldn't be. Now I can then, I'll go back and use my past value, so I'm simply going to copy that one down all the way there. Okay. And they're all past dates now. Just to prove it works, I'm going to change some of these dates. So let's say we're going to repeat these shows in the future. So I'll tell you what, I'll leave that first one. Now we'll leave the first two as past, and I will change Citizen Kane to, let's say, July, 18th of July, and we'll have the Wizard of Oz in August, and we'll have Singing in the Rain in September. There we go. So now what's happened is our first two results are negative, and so the word past goes in there, and our last three results are positive, and so the calculation continues as normal. What that does basically is with the spreadsheets, it just puts a more friendly result into the result cells rather than have something that looks a bit weird. So when you do a calculation, you end up with a negative value. Obviously that's not, I mean the result is correct, but it's not what you want people to see. And this makes it a bit more user friendly, sort of puts a message on instead of a value. Okay, so that's one thing you can do. So here we have another example of how you might use date calculations in spreadsheets, and this is a simple table of names and dates of birthdays. So I might be able to use this to remember someone's birthday. So if you have lots of friends and you're always forgetting to send them a card, you might find these useful. Obviously what I need to do here is put a calculation in this days to go column, so I know how many days there are to go, but what I will also do here is combine this with an if function and also add in some conditional formatting, so make it look quite interesting. Okay, so we'll do the calculation first, and as on the previous one I was simply going to do an if function, so I'm going to do the date calculation obviously, but also if the date has passed I want to put a message in to say it's gone, so you're too late, something like that. So we'll do equals if, open bracket, and the first thing I'll do is test the calculation to see if it's a positive date or a negative date. And again I go to the first birthday, minus, click on the date which is today's date, make that an absolute reference, and I want to know if that's less than 0. In other words, has the date actually passed? And type a comma if it has passed. So I'm going to type in there, oh no, sorry, I'll type in there too late. There we go, with an exclamation mark. Type a comma, and if it hasn't passed, I simply want to repeat the calculation, which is going to be the same thing again, B4 minus E1, and again make that an absolute reference in this case. So that's basically as we did it on the previous one. If I press the enter key now, it tells me there are 9 days to go. Okay, so I'm going to copy that formula down. So we have all the dates in. I can test the if function by making that 24th of June date, maybe the 1st of June, so we know it's in the past. And this is too late. So that works okay. Let's undo that, put it back where it was. And now I'm going to apply the conditional formatting. So we add a bit of colour onto our sheet as well. And the idea is that I want different colours to appear as the birthday becomes progressively closer. And to do this, what I'm going to do is first of all select all the data in the table, not the titles at the top there, the column headings, just the actual data, the names and dates and the days to go calculation. Click on the format menu, choose conditional formatting, and I'm actually going to set 3 conditions here. And it's slightly different. Instead of saying cell value is, I'm going to set it to formula is. Okay, and what I then do is click in the long entry box there and type equals, click on the first date, which is C4, and I'm going to modify that by taking out the $sign between the C and the 4. And what that means is that the column reference remains absolute, but the row reference is relative. So as the conditional format moves down the table, it updates the row number from 4 to 5 and so on. That'll make sense when you see the result, so it colours in the row and not the whole table, which is not what we want at all. So $C4 is the reference for that, and I'm simply going to say, is it less than 2? In other words, is there a day to go before the birth date, or is it the actual birthday, or past the date? And I'm going to apply a format to that. I'm going to make the font colour yellow, and I'm going to make the background colour red. Click OK to that. So that's quite a strong image there. So I'll actually modify that a bit more. I might make the font bold as well, so it stands out even more. Okay, so I'm going to add a second condition, and all I do really, what I can actually do here is cheat a bit, because I can simply copy, Control C to copy once I've highlighted it, that first formula. My condition 2 formula is, click in the box, the entry box, and do Control V to paste. And this time I'm going to say, is it less than 8 days? Okay, so in other words, this will apply if it's greater than 1 day or less than 8 days. So it's getting close but not critical. And so I'm going to apply a different format to this. I'm simply going to apply, not a border, a background colour, so sort of an orangey yellow. Click OK, and I'm going to do one more. So formula is, and obviously still got that formula on my clipboard, so I can simply paste that in again. And this time I want to know if it's less than 15 days, so it gives me plenty of time to get things organised. Click on format, and this time I'll apply a green background indicating that it's getting closer, but I've still got time to get things sorted out. Click OK. And if I just click away from the table, you will see that because the birthday is on the 24th of June, there are 9 days to go, so it's green. Now what I'll do is I'll move that birthday progressively closer to today's day, and let's see how it changes. So if it was, say, the 20th of June, which is 5 days away, it suddenly goes to the yellow colour, indicating that things are getting a bit tight. And if I move it even closer, so if it's tomorrow, then we get the red alert come on, indicating that we haven't got much time to get things sorted out. So that's just a nice little example of how you can use date calculations, combine it with if functions and conditional formatting. And if I move that beyond, so if I put that birthday into past, you'll see also that we get the too late message come up. And if I just go down here and we'll just put some different dates on each of these, so you get an idea of how it all works. So you can see the different colours and messages appear depending on how close you are to your birthday. You can also use this with the sorting features. If you want to have your list sorted by the name, I could just click into any one of the names there, click onto any one of the names and click on my A to Z sort, and that will organise names alphabetically, but obviously my dates are now out of sequence, but still by using the highlighting I can see which ones are close and which ones are far away. And if I want to reset it so it's sorted by dates, click any date, click A to Z again, and that sorts it by most recent to the most far away. And finally, even though I've missed this first one, I can simply click in the formula bar and change 2011 to 2012, press enter, resort the list, and that birthday goes to the back of the pile now. So hopefully I'll remember Tom's birthday next year. Okay, that concludes this tutorial. Hope you found that useful. In the next one we'll be looking at how to enter, format and calculate with times. So see you then.